Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I look exactly the same. I literally just turned my camera off and turned it on again. But I want to give you some more regular content because I know I've not been good at that recently. So this is part 2 of my September wrap up. I'll link part 1 in the video link at the top of the page. I think that's where they are now. So feel free to click on those and see what I thought of some of the books I read earlier on in the month of September. But now we're going to talk over the ones I've read in the second half of September. So the first one I want to talk about today is Barbara the Slut and Other People by Lauren Holmes. And oh my goodness, I love this book. I love this book so much. When I was reading it, I was recommending it to people when I was like here. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. You just need to read this. It's wonderful. It came at just the right time for me too. It's all about relationships. It's all about how we deal with people in relationships and what on earth we even are doing with ourselves and who cares what we do with ourselves. It's wonderful. As a sort of example, there's this one short story, sorry, I didn't even explain that, where you have a girl who invites this Swedish man into her house, and she thinks, wonderful, we'll have a one-night stand and it will be beautiful, and he'll leave. And he just never leaves. So she has to deal with a Swedish man who just moves in and she doesn't know who he is really, and she's too shy to say no. But it's about how things like that come about, and really, you know, the chance that you're with someone, you know, how odd it is to even be with someone and in a relationship. It's great fun, and to be honest, this is one of those books where I was saying I want something written for people my age. I feel like this is for people my age. Absolutely loved it. I think it's her debut too, so Lauren Holmes, write more. I will read more. Oh, 5 out of 5. And the next one I read, I'm proud of this. It's The Luminaries, Braille and Carton. And I'm not going to talk too much about it. It's huge. I've read it. I kind of think I'm done with it now. Yeah, so basically this is essentially about groups of miners in New Zealand and Australia who have come across and decided to make their fortune mining for gold. But what you end up with is, length of book-wise, an amazing mix of these characters. You have all of these different mysteries ongoing at once, and you're sort of trying to piece together what's happened to everyone and sort of how everything links and becomes one. I'm not sure whether it's a factor because I've read it over such a long period of time, but there were some points at which there were obviously reveals going on, and I was like, yeah, I know. I don't know whether either I figured it out or maybe that's a factor of the book, I don't know. The reality is, for me, I found this quite hard going. I didn't find that I was particularly interested in the subject matter, and I had a handful of characters I related to, but when you're dealing with such a large number of characters and such a large number of storylines, you need more than a handful, you need 10. And I didn't have that, so it was harder going. But I'm glad I've read it, and I'm not quite sure what everyone else is going on about. So if you love this book, tell me why, because I do feel as though I may have missed something and there is no chance I'm reading it again. And the next book I read was Bone Gap by Lauren Ruby. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, and I think it's the perfect book to sum up that 3 out of 5 stars feeling. It's fine. I read it, it was cool, but I don't think anything about it now. Essentially it is about a girl who goes missing from a small town, and about a boy who is trying to convince everyone that he can find her and sort of get her back. There were some interesting things in this novel, but I felt as though the author had potentially tried to put too many weird things in and that we never really explored any of them properly. I would have been more happy to have just one factor explored through the duration of the novel, whereas we actually deal with a whole host of different ideas. It's YA, and I think it's a debut too, and I think sometimes this does happen. It's not a bad book. If you like YA and you're interested in something a little bit different, then by all means, you know, have a read. But I didn't think it had the form and structure of the YA that I tend to enjoy, and I was a little bit disappointed with this one really. But it was a meh book. It wasn't a bad book, it's just, I'm not going to recommend it to people. It's just fine. And then the next book I read was another YA. I don't think I actually read them in succession, but they're in the pile. And that was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walters. This was quite a stark contrast to the last book. despite there only being 1-star difference in rating, which maybe I'll address at some stage. But this is a YA book about a girl who was born with wings, and it's about her and her growing up being different in reality. It is magical realism, and it's a very beautiful metaphor is what I would read this as, but you could quite happily read it as she has wings attached to her body. The ending was wonderful. I think the ending probably made the book for me and moved it from sort of an okay book to a book that I would recommend people pick up. The writing was also absolutely gorgeous, and you know, hands down, I think it counts for an awful lot when you have a YA author who's willing to put the effort into making a book beautiful, and it truly is. It's an absolutely gorgeous book. It's a lovely message, but it didn't hit that 5 out of 5 stars for me. It didn't sort of blow me away, but it was very good. And the next book I have is The Room by Jolis Carlson. I really liked this book. I thought it was really good fun. I read it in pretty much in one sitting, because it's teeny tiny, and it's about a room. It's not what I thought it was, but it's about a room and it's in a wall, and maybe it isn't there, but it works, this room, and he gets a little dumb when he goes in this room, but maybe there is no room. I can't really explain it more than that. It's set in an office and it's really funny, and I want to work in an office that requires Swedish slippers. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next book we have, yeah, I can't recommend it to you, but it's probably the best book I've read this year. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yangahara. I can't recommend it to you because this made me feel things I don't think books have ever made me feel before. Yeah, and I can't do that to you. I'm going to do a full review on this because I don't quite know how to talk about it yet, but I know I want to. 5 out of 5 stars. So moving on from A Little Life, because that's kind of been what I've been doing since I put it down, is just moving away from it. I read another Man Booker shortlist, I think it's shortlist. I read Satin Island anyway, by Tom McCarthy. The concept of this book sounded really interesting to me. I know some people said that they thought it was weird and you know, it seemed like a really odd concept. I really liked it. So the main character is a corporate anthropologist, which essentially means he's a really up himself HR person. And because I do HR, I was like, yeah, this is interesting. Maybe there is an underlying theme that links to the whole of humanity. See, I'm getting drawn into the story. I don't think that's supposed to happen. It's essentially about a man who works for a large corporation, determining the patterns of humanity as a whole, as opposed to for that corporation. It's told in very short snippets. There's some absolutely gorgeous bits in it, and probably Jean's bookish thoughts summed it up much better than I could, certainly, but I think she summed up the way she felt about the book quite nicely, so I'll link you to that one too, so you can have a look and see what she thought of the book. I found that quite helpful when choosing to read it, and also when thinking, how did I feel about it afterwards? It sort of helped me clarify some of my own feelings. In terms of its actual quality and its worth of a novel, I think that's a harder question. I think it's a question I wouldn't even be asking if it wasn't the Man Booker, but I think it does lack in some ways. It's hard. It's a book I enjoyed very much, and would recommend to people who want to read something a little bit different, but I'm aware that potentially my own personal interests may have affected the level to which I enjoyed this book, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, trying to be objective with it, but I would have given it a 4 out of 5 stars just for my personal view on it. It's a really interesting way to see the world, though it is kind of mad. I would warn you, it's kind of an insane way to see the world, and I don't think that anyone balanced could ever see the world like this. So the last book that I read in the month of September was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and I really like this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I think it was just very relatable and similarly sort of relatively sort of open-minded, and you know, could potentially expand quite a lot of people's viewpoints, but I think for myself I just found it quite refreshing. It's about the friendship between 2 boys. Really interesting to have a sort of contemporary novel from the perspective of guys, I love it. But about their relationship with each other and about what it's like growing up in the middle of nowhere and what it's like to find a friend in the middle of nowhere. I definitely relate to that from when I was a kid. It's really genuinely beautiful too. I think the writing is just gorgeous. I think it's not complicated, and it's not something that I would recommend this to a lot of people. I think that a lot of people who enjoy YA would enjoy this for a variety of reasons. That's not why I liked it so much though. I knew what was going to happen throughout the novel, and didn't have any issue with that, but it was just a beautiful way of telling that story, and I really appreciated it. Okay, so that is the end of my September wrap up. So I read 17 books this month, but some of them are huge. I think 2 of them were over 700 pages long, so I'm pretty proud of that. I think that's a good reading month, and I've quite enjoyed what I've read as well. I've had quite a range of things to read, and I'm just enjoying it at the moment, and I'm loving having that smaller TBR. For all of you who are skeptics, just try it. Try it, it's so freeing. You can read anything. I mean, you can anyway, but you can read everything. Yeah. I'm babbling. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you soon in my October TBR video. Bye bye.